feeling low.
Well, hi there, Lemon Drops, and welcome back to the Lemonade Stand, or welcome if you are new. My name is Brianna. I'm a certified personal trainer, a big, huge biology nerd, and a hashtag RD2B. We're gathered here today for yet another installment of my ongoing series, True Science. In this series, we dive into stories about doctors who turned out to be frauds, bizarre medical phenomenon, mad scientists, and everything in between. On tap today is quite a popular name in the criminal world anyway. You may have not have heard of him, but the Superior Court of the state of California certainly has. Kurt Donsbach. I'm sorry, Dr. Kurt Donsbach. Before we proceed, if you love science-based health, wellness, and fitness education with lots of lulz and lots of dry sarcasm on the way, why not hit that subscribe button and join the Lemonade Stand, because we would just really love to have you here. All right, without anything further, let's make some lemonade. All right, so, feel like lighting is a little funny because it's gloomy outside because it's currently raining. So if you hear any, like, I don't know, that was a dog. If you hear any thunder, it's the storm outside, so I do apologize for that. Although, I don't know, maybe it kind of fits the mood of the video today. This one's crazy, so buckle up, let's get it. So, Kurt Donsbach. Have you heard of him? Yeah, me neither. I came across the name when I was researching for another episode of True Science. I don't remember which one. So, there's a lot that this man got into, like a lot. A source I frequently use for this series, specifically on my channel, is quackwatch.org, which is operated by Dr. Stephen Barrett. Dr. Barrett has a nice, long, detailed piece about Kurt Donsbach, and it's the main source I use for this video to piece together a general timeline. That, as well as all my sources, as usual, will be linked below in the description box. Kurt Walter Donsbach was born December 1st, 1935. This is just yet another lesser-known case. I couldn't find any information on this guy's early life. His shady dealings and criminal activity started far before I was born, like in the early 70s, and continued into the 2000s. But I just couldn't find anything on his upbringing or his adolescence or anything like that. So let's skip ahead. So Kurt graduated from Western States Chiropractic College in 1957, and I'm sure not a single one of you is surprised that he's a chiropractor. I know. I was shocked. After graduating, he practiced as a chiropractor in Montana for a few years, and his specialty was, quote, specializing in treatment of arthritic and rheumatoid disorders, end quote. It was in 1961 that he started working for a company called Standard Process Laboratories, which is kind of a weird name for a company, I thought. He worked in the research, development, and marketing division. At some point, Chiro Kurt got inspired and he decided he wanted to have his own baby. I speak figuratively, of course. I have no idea if he had kids or not. So he eventually left Standard Process Laboratories and he opened up a health food store called Nature's Way Health Food Store in Westminster, California. He also started a company called West Pro Laboratories, which was in Garden Grove, California. They packaged, repackaged, manufactured, sold, and labeled dietary supplements and even some drugs, like pharmaceutical drugs. According to a inspection report released on West Pro Laboratories after it had an inspection, some of those drugs included something called Dr. Donsbach's Formula ENZ, Master Formula Metazyme, Soft Lax, and Metavitamin A-C, I assume that means like A through C, plus E. That inspection report was released in 1963, and we will circle back to that in a minute. But before that, in 1970, Chiro Kurt got busted when some undercover agents from the fraud division of California Bureau of Food and Drugs witnessed him telling customers that the vitamins in his little shop could do things like fight against cancer, treat heart disease, emphysema, and plenty of other things. And a lot of the things that he was prescribing to people were packaged by his own company, his other company, West Pro Labs. In 1971, he was charged with 9 counts of illegal activity and 1 count of practicing medicine without a license. He apparently agreed to cease nutrition counseling, that's what the documents said, and he was fined $2,750. That's about $21,000 in today's money. And he was also given a couple years of probation, which I'm sure made him into a reformed man, and he learned his lesson. In 1973, he was charged yet again with 9 more counts of illegal activity, including but not limited to misbranding of drugs and manufacturing drugs without a license. He pled no contest to one of the new drug charges, paid a fine, and did the probation thing again. This time, his probation came with the terms that he basically had to shake himself loose of his company, West Pro Labs. And this is where that aforementioned inspection report came from. One of the drugs listed on the inspection report that was found at West Pro Labs had a acetaminophen listed in the title, which is Tylenol. So they were dealing like actual pharmaceutical drugs here. So obviously after this legal trouble, Kurt was a reformed man who had learned his lesson. Right, wrong. In 1974, he violated his probation and was fined yet again. So it was that year that he sold his company to a corporation called Rich Life Inc. for $250,000. Now that's a lot of money for that time, but adjusted for inflation, that comes to a little over $1.5 million in today's money. And part of that transaction with Rich Life Inc. actually included him getting an extra $20,000 a year to do speaking engagements and to host the company booth at trade shows. So at that point, he was sitting real pretty. Like that's a pretty good setup. $20,000 a year in 1974 is about $126,000 in today's money. He really could have retired at that point. I probably would have, but oh no. He was not done. He had more tomfoolery. In 1976, he got his license to practice naturopathy in the state of Oregon. To obtain this naturopathy degree, he submitted a diploma from the Hollywood College School of Naturopathy, a school that did not exist, and it was later found that his diploma was a forgery. Apparently, his diploma had the date, it said 17 ST, so like 17th, when it should have said 17th. With a TH. It said 17 ST June 1961. This fake diploma had apparently been put together by making distorted photocopies of a Hollywood School of Chiropractic diploma or paperwork or something like that. Either way, it wasn't real. After this discovery, his license to practice naturopathy was revoked in 1988, but to his credit, he held it for over 10 years before anyone realized it was fake, which is so wild to me that no one caught that. So in 1979, he began operating Donsbach, I'm saying Donsbach, I assume that's how you say his name. Donsbach University, an unaccredited school that awarded nutrition degrees from a bachelor's all the way up to a doctorate degree. Even though Donsbach University was not accredited, that did not stop Cairo Kurt from saying that it was accredited by the National Accreditation Association, which sounds totally legit. I guess somebody smelled something fishy because the NAA was eventually investigated by the National Council Against Health Fraud, which is a real thing. It's a nonprofit agency committed to cleaning up health fraud, misinformation, and quackery that hurts public health. So they investigated the NAA and they discovered that their office was a phone in some guy's living room, specifically the executive director, their living room. And this executive director got paid $100 a month, which is about $430 in today's money, which is abysmal. So in 1982, Mr. Kurt established and became board chairman of Health Resources Group Incorporated, or HRG for short. They sold, you guessed it, dietary supplements. The supplements were sold through HRG, and they were also sold through another company called Nutrition Motivation, which was a multi-level marketing company. So now we've arrived in 1984, and here comes the first lawsuit. A young man named Jacob Stake was suing him. Jake got really sick and wound up in the hospital after taking mega doses of vitamin A over the course of about 2.5 years, and he was doing this at the direction of a booklet written by Kurt Donsbach. According to the court documents, Jake was a minor when he started doing this. They settled the case out of court, and Jake ended up being awarded about $35,000, which is about $105,000 today. Also, in 1984, Mr. Kurt bought back the rights to sell his products from Rich Life Incorporated. Remember them? And then HRG started promoting some of these products, one of which was called Orishell. This product falsely claimed to fight against cardiovascular disease. One source I read said that they claimed that this product was an alternative to heart surgery. In June of 1985, the FDA was finally on to his tomfoolery. They sent him and his company HRG a letter basically just being like, hey, the claims you're making on your product Orishell make it an unapproved drug and it's illegal to market, knock it off. I tried to find the letter online, but I couldn't. So at this point, the New York State Attorney General named Robert Abrams got involved, and he had Orishell seized from several retailers in New York City, and he filed a suit to block the sale or distribution of it any further. The suit also sought damages and restitution to anyone in New York who had bought it since January 1st, 1984. Eventually, the company stopped marketing Orishell, but they continued to market Oriflow, which was apparently identical to Orishell. So in July of 1985, New York State Attorney General Robert Abrams filed a petition against Mr. Kurt and Donsbach University, his school. This petition ordered that Donsbach University was to disclose to New York residents and in any nationally distributed publications that their degree programs are not registered with the New York Department of Education and are not accredited by any accrediting agency recognized by the United States Department of Education. It was basically saying, cut the shit. You're not a real school, and you need to tell people that you're not a real school and quit masquerading around like you're a real school. Kurt Donsbach and his university agreed to stop doing this, and they also ended up paying a fine. So by 1987, Mr. Kurt had run his well dry. He filed for bankruptcy, listing no assets and $3 million in debts. $3 million is a lot of money then. Adjusted for inflation, that $3 million in 1987 is about $9 million in 2024. That's how much he was in debt. Unbelievable. When I think about how well he was set up when he sold his company to Rich Life Inc., and that they were gonna, not just the money that he made from selling, but also they were gonna give him $20,000 a year in the 80s, which was just good money. That's a damn good arrangement. He could have stopped his conniving behavior and actually use that money for real investments. I don't know. So at the interest of time, we're going to skip ahead to the 90s. But before we do, I need to mention one last big thing that happened in the 80s. In 1987, Mr. Kurt took a trip south of the border and opened a hospital in Rosarito Beach, Mexico. It was called Hospital Santa Monica. If you recall, I'm pretty sure it was Gary Young who did the same thing too. He opened up a fake health clinic in Mexico. Seems like a lot of scammers frequently do that. And I think the short answer is because a lot of the laws and regulations surrounding healthcare practice are a lot less stringent than they are here in the United States. So some dum-dum with a 5-week online medical degree can open up a whole medical practice down there and no one bats an eye. Now, remember I said a few minutes ago, it was in 1988 that he had his license to practice naturopathy revoked by the Arizona Naturopathy Physicians Board of Examiners. And that was because they realized that the documents he submitted were a farce. A bamboozle. So not only was he not even a medical doctor, he couldn't even practice naturopathy. His ability to even practice naturopathy, which is often seen as an illegitimate field of medicine and frequently conflated with pseudoscience, had also been revoked. So the brochure of the Hospital Santa Monica read the following: the right alternative for those who have been told, quote, you have an incurable disease, end quote. Some of those treatments included injecting people with vials of neuropeptides, which he claimed would reprogram your body's T cells. Each vial apparently cost his patients about $250, and of course they can never just get one, I read that there was one person that they scammed into spending over $4,000 on this treatment. Okay, so now we're in 1996. Everything's great. Well, not for Kurt. The law caught up to him yet again, and according to court records, he pled guilty to smuggling unapproved drugs in, quote, interstate commerce, end quote, smuggling merchandise in violation of Title 18, the United States Code, Section 545, and, quote, evading the payment of taxes in violation of Title 26, United States Code, Section 7201, end quote. So he was also in some tax trouble, too, for not paying taxes. For these crimes, in 1997, he was sentenced to federal prison by a San Diego judge. However, according to Quackwatch, that sentence was never carried out for some reason. Something happened and the judge ended up amending his sentence to 6 months of house arrest. And during this time, he was apparently still able to conduct business in his hospital in Mexico. What's going on here? So now we're going to skip ahead about a decade to 2006. This is where the shit really hit the freaking fan. Coretta Scott King, widow of the most influential civil rights leader and activist of the 20th century, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, was battling ovarian cancer. She, like so many people who get scammed by health guru charlatans, was desperate for a cure and fighting for her life. She decided to take a trip south of the border and was checked into Hospital Santa Monica. A few days after her admission, she passed away. Now, to be fair, it was said in multiple sources that I came across that she wasn't there long enough to receive any treatment. Everywhere I read only said that she had just been undergoing evaluation. So it's not believed that she died as a result of any of their treatments, which according to the LA Daily News one of their cancer treatments included using microwaves to heat cancer cells. But apparently it's none of those treatments are what killed her. Just making that clear. Because of who she was, this got the hospital and Kurt Donsbach a lot of media attention. So following the media frenzy after Coretta King's death, Mexican authorities shut down Hospital Santa Monica. According to the LA Daily News, the hospital employed people who were not properly trained in healthcare or medicine, did not follow proper procedures for treating terminally ill patients, and did not meet sanitation requirements. Why were they able to stay open? Now, according to Dr. Barrett's coverage on Kurt Donsbach, apparently shortly after Hospital Santa Monica was shut down, they quietly reopened under a new name and just continued their shenanigans. In April of 2009, a 73-year-old Kurt Donsbach was charged with 11 felony counts, which included posing as a doctor and providing misbranded drugs and promising successful cancer treatments to ill people. From the FBI archives, San Diego District Attorney Bonnie M. Dumanis announced today that a South Bay man has been arrested and charged for practicing medicine without a license and supplying patients with supplements containing non-FDA approved drugs. An investigation led by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, in cooperation with the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, and District Attorney's Office led to the arrest. Kurt Walter Donsbach, 73, of Bonita, is charged with 11 felony counts, including treating patients without a license, misbranding drugs for sale, grand theft, unlawfully dispensing drugs as a cure for cancer, and falsely representing a cure for cancer. District Attorney Dumanis said the following in this report. Quote, "The defendant preyed on vulnerable patients who were looking for medical help. Under the guise of providing natural and safe supplements, he sold victims potentially dangerous drugs." End quote. I concur. In 2010, a now 75-year-old Kurt Donsbach took a plea deal and pled guilty to 13 felony counts, which included practicing medicine without a license and selling misbranded drugs. Now, because he took a plea instead of going to trial, he was only facing a year in jail, up to a year in jail, instead of the maximum of 13 years he would have faced had he gone to trial. In 2011, a judge sentenced him to 1 year in prison, followed by 10 years probation. The terms of his probation included prohibiting him from representing himself as any type of healthcare practitioner in any way, shape, or form. He was also fined, again, $60,000. According to Dr. Stephen Barrett, reminder, he's the one who operates quackwatch.org, he had been following Kurt Donsbach criminal activities and shady dealings since they began back in the early 1970s. He said, quote, "I know of nobody who has engaged in a greater number and variety of health-related schemes and scams," end quote. On August 29th, 2021, Kurt Walter Donsbach died, which, looking at the dates, looks like that was just right at the end of his 10 years probation, which was ordered by the judge. So that was the long and awful story of Kurt Walter Donsbach. This video actually could have been longer, like probably well over an hour. But for time, I had to cut out a lot of stuff. I didn't even mention that he hosted a radio show, wrote several books, some of which are still on Amazon to this day. He got an order from a U.S. Postal Service judicial officer telling him to stop misrepresenting mail order sales, that a 35% hydrogen peroxide solution is effective against arthritis and cancer. Sometime in the mid-90s, he filed for bankruptcy again. And through all of this, he continued to hold himself out as a naturopathic doctor and a licensed chiropractor, but as you probably figured out at this point, he was not a physician, and not only that, he wasn't even licensed to practice chiropractic in the state of California. He was a chiropractor earlier in his career, but I guess at some point, and after relocating to California, he never became licensed again. So, the reason I strongly dislike people like this is because they take advantage of desperate people who are dying of an illness and are just scared to death and just want a cure. They want a miracle. And when these charlatans do get caught by the law for their behavior, barely anything happens to them. How many times did this guy get caught up by the law or got caught up with a lawsuit or criminal charges, and that didn't stop him? That didn't stop him. I would love a mental health professional to, like, I don't know, psychoanalyze one of these people, because I feel like a lot of them have very similar attributes to influencers that we see today on social media. All right. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you enjoy similar content, why not hit the subscribe button? And I will see you guys back here in a couple weeks for a new video. Queen Lemon, over and out. Who's a handsome man? Who's a handsome old man? My goodness. Yes, you come over here and get some pets, because you're a handsome old man.
Look at those big pretty brown eyes. Look at those big pretty brown eyes. Aren't you so handsome? You are. You are. He's so handsome, isn't he? You guys, how is he the most handsome boy? Oh, are you tired? Tell him he's the most handsome man. Yes, he's my salt and pepper man. Oh, my old boy. Honestly, gonna be 11 this year, you guys. Isn't that crazy? He's my old man.